The social media feud between AJ Ferrari and Nick Stemmet over the past week has been quite exciting to watch. It started out in their Instagram DMs with Stemmet calling Ferrari out, kept calling him Albert and calling him out for overusing emojis on social media. AJ Ferrari ended up calling him back out and saying that he was going to tech pin him and end his college career. I don't know where Ferrari comes out with this stuff, but ultimately it was building up hype for the Stanford and Oklahoma State duel, which was quite fun. Now, Ferrari was able to back up his trash talk whenever he majored Stemmet 16-3 in his opening weekend duel of the season. What a win for AJ Ferrari, even with that crazy celebration there at the end. It was kind of fun to watch him wrestle. Now, overall in the dual meet, Oklahoma State did end up winning by a score of 29-7. Ferrari wasn't the only NCAA champion to take part in the event, though. Shane Griffith also wrestled and beat Travis Whitlake by a decision 4-0. Jaden Avis was the other wrestler from Stanford to earn a victory. He majored his opponent, Keaton Gefeller, 15-6. What a couple of great wins for Stanford, but ultimately, like I said, Oklahoma State won, and this was John Smith's 450th career dual meet. AJ Ferrari, of course, helped lead the way to that dual meet victory, and he wasn't the only one trash talking on social media this weekend. I'm going to get to all of that. It's crazy what happened over the weekend. So let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's going on, wrestling fans? My name's Josiah, and welcome to Fanco Wrestling, your source for college wrestling news and discussion. And what a weekend it was for college wrestling in wrestling headlines, starting out with Chad Red of Nebraska. And I have to show you this video because I couldn't believe that this happened in their match between Nebraska and Nebraska Kearney. Chad Red started doing push-ups on his opponent after he pinned him. Now, Chad Red is a three-time All-American, and you see in the video here, he takes over his opponent in the duel and pins him, starts doing push-ups on him. Of course, his opponent gets a little bit upset because he doesn't want to be embarrassed. You know, getting pinned's one thing, it's upsetting, but then to get push-upped on, like, oh man, I don't know what college wrestling is turning into. I don't really love all those over crazy reaction celebrations. Like, I think there's a time and a place, and I think some celebrations are okay, but like, don't embarrass your opponent too much. I don't know. I'm interested in hearing what you had to say because Chad Red is a three-time All-American at the end of the day. Beating the D2, D3 opponent isn't like his ultimate goal. It should be getting on the stand, getting to the top of the stand, and maybe then do a celebration like that if you so desire. But I'm interested in hearing what you have to say also about this feud. Because Spencer Lee, we all know that everybody's on the hunt for Spencer Lee this year. We know that Pat Glory's looking to beat Spencer Lee, Vito Arujau is looking to beat Spencer Lee, and now Killian Cardinale is looking to beat Spencer Lee. Of course, when you're at the top of the totem pole, everybody's gunning for you. Now, Cardinale is a top 10 opponent in the NCAA, a 2021 All-American. He placed 7th last year, and he called Spencer out on social media. This all started with a thread from the Stalemates Twitter account. Stalemates wasn't the one who called him out or started anything, but it was a couple of fans who just kind of recycled this video that came out when Spencer Lee was talking about the NCAA championships and the fact that Cardinale was like asking for a stall call when Spencer went out of bounds, when Spencer was already up pretty big in the match. And this is what Cardinale had to say. He said, "Excuses are for wusses. Hold on, let me just make an excuse as to why I didn't beat my opponents more. Then congratulate me after I place." This is another scenario, and I'm going to show you this clip here in just a second about Cardinale actually, like, what happened in this match. I went and found it because I thought it was important to discuss this, but he was responding to these comments that Spencer Lee was making on the Bashmania podcast, and just Spencer was like, "Why are you going to call stalling in this scenario?" Right? So here at the end of the match, Cardinale is really pushing the pace, and he gets takedown on Spencer. He pushes him out, and then he's like, "Stalling, Spencer Lee's stalling," and Spencer's just like, "Are you serious?" Now, over the past couple of days, I mean, Cardinale's just been totally responding to everybody's complaints about this tweet. Some people were upset, some people were on his side, and I don't know. I'm like, Spencer Lee's a class act. He's not out there doing the push-ups on opponents. He's not out there like embarrassing people just for the fun of it. He goes out there, he does his job, he wins, and like Spencer said, he was at like 20% capacity there with no ACLs. I don't know that that's the person to be calling out on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, speaking of the Iowa Hawkeyes, Patrick Kennedy pushed Alex Marinelli to the limit over the weekend. And, I mean, he really just pushed him to the edge. Now, Iowa competed at the Luther Open, and this was essentially a wrestle-off for the Hawkeyes at certain weights. it wasn't like a crazy tournament for 8 Hawkeyes to have won. Now, 8 Hawkeyes did win. No crazy upsets or anything like that. I'll talk about a couple of the small things. And, like, you saw some medical forfeits that happened at some of the weights just because they didn't want all their starters wrestling each other off, like, at specific weights. But two of the things before I get to Alex Marinelli and what happened to him, Clayton Whiting actually, he was an unattached high school commit, beat Abe Assad at 184 pounds. So it seems like 184 is really up for questioning with Assad losing that match. And then we thought that Nelson Brands was going to get the start potentially. And we know that Coach Brands is going to put in the best wrestler for every single weight. This includes 184 with Assad or Brands, who, I mean, you have a coach's son there, and he's going to put up the best guy who's going to put up the most points. And same with 165 pounds. This raised a couple of questions over the weekend as Alex Marinelli and Patrick Kennedy went the distance. It was 1-1. It was a pair of escapes going into the last 30 seconds of the match when Alex Marinelli did lock up a body lock. And at that point, I knew it was over. If you ever seen Alex Marinelli get in this position, you know it's essentially over. Like, he's going to get you to your back. He's going to potentially pin you. Now, he didn't pin Kennedy. He did get the takedown and go up 3-1. Kennedy did escape. So the final score ended up 3-2, which was pretty close. Now, a couple of things about this is, one, that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. I mean, yeah, Marinelli's the better wrestler here. He showed. But these guys are probably wrestling in the room quite a bit. They know each other's styles. It's still impressive that a freshman comes in from the Iowa Hawkeyes and takes Alex Marinelli to the limit. I don't know. Maybe he gets to start against 1 or 2 matches. We'll see what happens. But I think that Marinelli is right now the better wrestler. But again, like I said, the best wrestler is going to get the start. Now, a couple of matches, in case you missed it over the weekend, a couple of different things. One, Andrew Alirez of Northern Colorado upset Alan Hart. Impressive victory for the Northern Colorado wrestler. Now, if you don't know about Alirez, he was hurt last season. He was 4-0 going into Big 12s, ended up injury defaulting out, didn't wrestle at Nationals. The year before that, he was 24-4 heading into the postseason. Didn't wrestle at Nationals, of course, because that was canceled that year. But this season, he's 4-0, starting out with a big win over Mizzou's Alan Hart. He went into overtime with him, and it was 1-1 heading into overtime, a pair of escapes for each of them. Alan Hart, if you don't know, was a round of 12 finisher last year, a top 10 wrestler for Mizzou this year. And with 30 seconds left, Alirez actually was able to get a takedown in 30 seconds left in a sudden victory, that is. He was able to get the takedown on Alan Hart. And that's the kind of cool thing, if you don't know, if you're unaware this year, overtime is 2 minutes. So there's a 2-minute overtime, and that seemed like it helped out Alirez, of course, because he didn't get it in the first 30 seconds. But now with that little extra time, a little bit more kind of back and forth action, he was able to get that takedown, won 3-1 in sudden victory, showing that he's a wrestler to watch. Considering he was the only wrestler on Northern Colorado to get the win, 38-3 is what Mizzou ended up doing. And that takes us to Penn State. Penn State takeaways from over the weekend as they wrestled Oregon State and Sacred Heart. They open up the season. Of course, last week we talked about some things that we expected to happen, but Penn State showed up. They beat Oregon State 32-7, and then they beat Sacred Heart 47-3. That was the first match. Then they went into Oregon State in the duels at the Journeyman event on Rockfin. And what an event it was. Great, well put together. And there were a couple of things to take away from Penn State, such as their new starters. Baylor Shunks started out at 125 pounds. That's been like the back and forth. Everybody's like, is Nick Soriano going to go there? Is Drew Hildebrand going to go there? Is like what's going on at 125 pounds? And it seems like Hildebrand's going to Penn State, but right now Shunk is starting out the season. He started out pretty strong with a tech and a decision loss to Oregon State. So, I mean, he's still showing he's getting in there and winning matches. Joey Bloomer started at 157 pounds. Didn't see Joe Lee there at 157. Unfortunately, Bloomer started out with a couple of losses. And Creighton Edsel at 165 had 2 wins on the weekend. Now, not just that, but you also had Max Dean start out at 197 pounds. Now, 197 has been kind of a questionable weight. Is it going to be Michael Beard? Is it going to be Max Dean? Now, Dean won both matches. He won a decision and a tech fault, and he looked good. He looked real good. He was hitting that bow and arrow, that Zane Rutherford bow and arrow. He was, I mean, just doing different type of style that it's great to see him now that he's been training at Penn State, see him hit these type of moves. Michael Beard also wrestled that the weekend. He didn't wrestle in either of the duels, but he had 3 bonus point wins. So I don't know that the position's like totally Max Dean's yet, but it seems like that's what Penn State's going towards right now starting out the season. The third takeaway that I have, like other than the starters and Max Dean's great performance, is Penn State's looking for bonus points. They're really looking for bonus points. They won 17 matches in their duels. 13 of those they won by bonus point margin. Aaron Brooks with a tech and a fall, and oh my goodness, Brooks is looking good at 184. Carter Sirachi, a fall and a tech fall, as well as Kirk Fleet with a similar thing. Now, the thing about like Sirachi and why like these guys were talking last week in media day about how they needed to score bonus points if they wanted to beat Iowa. And they weren't just looking for like a major decision. They were looking for that tech. They were looking for the fall, including RBY, Nick Lee. Carter Sirachi last year had 4 total bonus point wins. This weekend he opened up with 2. That's quite a way to kick off the 2020 season. And wrestling is just chugging along. This upcoming weekend, Virginia Tech and Ohio State, Stanford and Cornell. We could see Yanni's debut. I'm hoping for it. Keep tuned to Fanco Wrestling to stay updated on the latest in college wrestling news.